Hey everybody, welcome back to the Holy Comforter Episcopal Church YouTube Bible study. I'm Jimmy Abbott, and we're going to be looking at the Gospel lesson for this upcoming Sunday, July 22nd. It's from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 6, verses 14 through 29. Now, you remember last Sunday we heard about Jesus commissioning the 12 disciples to go out to preach the gospel, to cast out demons, to cure the sick. And as Mark often does, he begins one story, cuts away to another story, and returns to the original story, what we call the Markan sandwich. So we'll get to the mission of the 12 disciples again next Sunday, but now we're panning to this second story. Or think of it as a movie, maybe, that you see Jesus commissioning the 12 disciples, and then the camera is going to pan to the story about King Herod and John the Baptist, and it sort of helps us understand that time has elapsed as the apostles are on their mission, and then it will pan back to the apostles coming back to recap their mission with Jesus. A reminder, John the Baptist was a cousin of Jesus who had been out in the wilderness preparing the way, offering a baptism for the forgiveness of sins, preparing the way for Jesus. And so we cut to the scene, and King Herod says, well, wait, who's this Jesus guy? Because I killed John the Baptist, and kind of makes us go, wait, you killed John the Baptist? What? And so then we hear the story of the death of John the Baptist. Essentially what had happened was that John the Baptist had gone around saying that Herod's marriage to this woman, Herodias, is illegal because Herodias had been Herod's brother's wife. I know. So according to Leviticus, it was illegal to marry your brother's wife. So John the Baptist is going around saying, look, our king is a bum. He's breaking God's commandments. As you can imagine, Herod is not really pleased at this, that someone is going around talking about how impure and unclean he is, so he locks up John the Baptist, and we get this really macabre story about how essentially Herodias' daughter asks King Herod for John the Baptist's head on a silver platter. Ugh. So you maybe have seen artistic representations of this. Like I said, it's a grisly scene, but it does a couple things for us. First of all, it prepares us for the death of Jesus. It's a little bit of foreshadowing, saying that if this is what happened to John the Baptist, and he wasn't even the one, imagine what will happen to Jesus, who is the one. So prepare yourself. And it sets up this tension between the rulers of the world and the ruler of all creation. We see that there's tension there between preaching God's righteousness, the good news, and the sort of sick, brittle, entrenched ways of the world. So that's really the tension that is coming out in this. This is also lots of resonance with the Old Testament. And I hear lots of Christians today say that, I don't like the Old Testament. That seems like an angry God. Like, I don't understand. Like, I've never read the Old Testament. And it's really too bad, because I don't think we really understand the full scope of the New Testament until we're very familiar with the Old Testament. This story here of Herodias playing her husband Herod to get another guy killed is almost the same story as King Ahab and his wife Jezebel, and Jezebel playing Ahab to get the vineyard of Naboth. It's a story in the Old Testament that I would encourage you to read. Remember, Ahab, it says that he did more evil in the sight of God than all those who came before him, so he's a pretty wicked guy. And I think that the Gospel of Mark in the New Testament is trying to set up Herod as the new Ahab. So just be cognizant of that there are intentional resonances with the Old Testament in the New Testament. So finally, what I want to say is that when the church is committed to the way of Jesus, when we are committed to loving God and loving our neighbor, this is going to set us up in tension with the powers of the world. What I find nowadays is that oftentimes we Christians, we want to be in bed with the powers of the world. We want to make our life easy. And I would say that no, actually, the way of Jesus sometimes is going to cut diagonally, and that we're going to have to speak hard things, or speak hard truths to the powers that be, to the powers of the world. This often means that we won't be necessarily progressive or conservative, that we're going to be who we are. And I think this is crucial for the church to hear in the 21st century, to not be seduced by into one of these ideological camps, but to say, I'm a follower of Jesus first. And that means that I'm going to have a specific ideology that is going to push back against all sides, and really in our culture now, both sides. So I'd encourage that for you, and to then remind you that this may not mean that things end well for us. It may mean that the powers of the world are set against us. So remember, that's the natural habitat of Christianity, is in a culture that is set against us. We, for the past 1,500 years, have lived in a culture that has coddled us. And now we are entering a culture again which is set against us. And we can try to recreate the past, recreate a time in which the church held power, but we're not in that time anymore. And to me, this is great liberation. It means that we can now speak the truth again to power. And again, that may end poorly for us, but we have to be true to our Lord Jesus, and remembering at the end of the day, that even though Jesus is crucified for speaking the truth to power, he is raised again for our sakes. So thank you all for joining me, and I hope that this provides some interesting, thought-provoking reflection on John the Baptist.